So I find that sales has changed dramatically over the years, and I've been doing sales since I was a baby. Basically, I mean, when I was a teenager, I was selling donuts at high school to kind of double my lunch money. So I've always been into sales, and the uncomfortable truth is that it's getting harder. Because for folks like me, and I started my sales career about 10 years ago and like my professional sales career, and I started, with cold calling and I'd get a spreadsheet of numbers and people and I would pick up a phone and I would just keep dialing. And I'd be in an office with a bunch of other people dialing and I'm learning from what they're saying on the phone and we're picking things up and we're calling and we're selling. And then things shifted. About 7 years ago, I moved to Asia and I started doing enterprise sales. And a couple of years into that, this new wonderful technology came out and it was called sequencing. And the tool I used was this little tool called Yesware. And Yesware enabled me to automate sending emails to prospects in a sequence. So day one, they'd get an email and 3 days later, they'd get a follow-up email and so on. And back in the like 5 years ago, which isn't that long ago, this was like revolutionary. And I remember I started using it and I would just send hundreds and hundreds of emails a day. And I was getting meetings and opportunities with like my hands tied behind my back. I mean, I had the easiest job in the world, but I was an early adopter and very, very quickly people and other salespeople started to adopt that and more of this technology started to come out. Right. There were more players in the space. And so more and more people started using it. Then you had tools like Apollo and Zoom Info. These were data vendors who would literally sell me your telephone number and your email address and sell it to everybody. And so very quickly, it wasn't just me being able to send hundreds of emails. It was everybody sending hundreds and hundreds of emails. And what everyone does and what everyone started to do is spray and pray. They just started to spam the market. And it got worse. You found tools like Instantly. You may have heard of it, where you can send 20,000 emails a month. And people got sick of it. People stopped replying. People started putting emails in junk. It didn't matter if you had value. It didn't matter if you had a good opportunity or you did a really well worded, personalized email. You were a sales email, and I hate receiving them. And that's how the prospects started to feel. And you had Google and Microsoft release updates to protect their users by creating spam filters and tools like Instantly combated this by allowing you to create 20 domain sending domains. And this spray and pray tactic just started hitting everybody. And so when there's so much noise, how do we stand out from that noise in this day and age? And for me, it comes to social selling. Now, I grew up in the early days of social media. I was a teenager when Facebook came out and became popular. I was sort of in secondary school. And I think most of you guys here listening today probably grew up already with social media, like right in your pocket. And so you guys are definitely better experts than I am when it comes to social media. And this is going to be a massive strength for you because we can do social selling. And I'm going to focus most of today on the B2B element rather than B2C. So how do we do social selling in a B2B world? How do we drive pipeline using LinkedIn? And social selling comes kind of four parts. We have to establish our own brand. We have to find the right people to connect with. We have to engage with those people and share conversation worthy pieces of content. And then we have to build relationships, AKA we have to talk to them, not sell to them, not always pitch them, but actually talk about them and talk to them what they care about. And these are the four key pillars and principles. We're not talking about selling, we're talking about building relationships, engaging with people. And there's many ways to do that. I always like to start when I look at an individual, especially a founder who I'm coaching, I first look at their LinkedIn profile. And many people make this mistake. And I ask for you guys to, if you've got your computer with you, open your LinkedIn profile right now, just real quick. And I want you to have a quick look at the description of your profile and tell me, does it sound like a resume, a CV, or is it more like a landing page to what you offer, what value you bring and what you do? Quick answers, no wrong answers. Who's got a landing page and who's got a resume? We start with our LinkedIn profile being a recruitment tool, right? LinkedIn is a great place to find jobs, find opportunities. And so it's natural that people list their accomplishments, their work experience here. What they don't think is actually your profile is a landing page of, if somebody comes to your profile, they need to quickly see what you do and the value that you bring and the opportunity that they can have for working with you. And this is a shift that I hope that all of you can learn from me with today. How are we going to make it happen? How are we going to turn you guys into social sellers? It starts really first with understanding our customer, knowing your customer better than they know themselves. And what I'm talking about here is understanding what their pain, so their problems, their fears, their hopes, and their dreams are. And if we know these four things, we can then speak their language. We can create content that we can post on LinkedIn. We can send messages that speak to those problems, those fears, those hopes, and those dreams. And I'm going to give you a cheat code today. If you know who the product that you are selling and who you're trying to sell that to, you have a rough idea. What I ask you to do, and not right now, but make a note, is go to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is great because it sources information from Reddit. And Reddit is a big social media platform where people post and talk about their problems, their fears, their hopes, and their dreams. So what I would suggest is you go to ChatGPT, you type in your persona, and you ask it to search through Reddit for what are the problems, fears, hopes, and dreams, and ask for verbatim quotes. And I'll show you some a little bit later. Now, what am I talking about when I'm talking about problems, fears, hopes, dreams? I'm sure many of you know different bits, but like pain, what's keeping them up at night, right? What are the problems that stress us out, right? I have a coachee who has a business that does math tuition. And so we did some research. What are the pains of parents who have children who are doing maths, right? And we would see things like maths homework always turns into tears. This is painful, right? It's always a battle. I feel like I'm a bad parent. I can't help them. These are pains and even fears in fact in that one, right? And so when we start to understand this, we can create content that speaks to these problems. And fears, I mentioned one fear, right? I feel like I'm a bad parent. I can't teach my child maths. Or in my case, I coach founders. I feel like I'm not good enough. I feel like I'm seeing other people grow faster than me. I feel like I'm an imposter. Maybe I'm not the right person for this. And trust me, I coach founders who have raised more than $1 million who say things like this, who have these fears, right? And we want to speak to those fears and help them feel like we, as the social seller, as a domain expert, can try to help solve them. And hopes is really good. Hopes is really important. What do we hope to achieve? What does a founder hope for? They hope to raise money. They hope to build their dream. They hope to service 1 million people. They hope to build a team. They hope to have their logo on a wonderful skyscraper. There's so many different hopes. I guess hopes and dreams are quite similar, really, but there are so many different hopes that we all have, right? What is one immediate hope one of your customers might have? What do you think they might hope for? Maybe I don't know what businesses you guys are building or where you're working, so I can't answer that for you. But when you start looking at this and dreams, of course, they want to IPO, they want to retire early, they want to build a legacy, they want to become that market leader, right? Can we help make their dreams come true? Do we have the answers that they seek? And if we know their problems, fears, hopes, and dreams, we can start to develop real content, a real strategy to start to speak to them. And remember my 4 pillars. Obviously, if you know how to find your ICP, you know who those are. Now we know what their problems, fears, hopes, and dreams are because we went to ChatGPT, we went to Reddit, and we found where founders or your ICP, my ICP, where founders have complained, have sought answers, have asked for support. They've shared their problems, their fears, their hopes and dreams. And this is a great opportunity for you to now start building content. And, when I speak to founders, they say things like this. And you see this on LinkedIn, right? I'm posting on LinkedIn every day, but nobody's buying. I feel like I'm shouting into the void. My product is better than theirs. Why are they winning? I hate selling. It feels gross. I'm burning out trying to be an influencer. If I don't fix this, we run out of cash in 3 months. These are those problems and fears that people are speaking about inside Reddit. And now I know. So now I can create great content. And in my retirement, guys, I decided to become a coach. I coach founders. I get a lot of fulfillment. I love it. How do I attract founders? Founders have ego, right? They're busy. Why would they want to spend time with a coach? Right? They already have an advisor. What's a coach? So they get a bit confused. So now, because I know their fears, because I know their hopes, because I know their dreams, I know their problems, I can figure out what's my content strategy to attack this so that they don't come at me with an ego, that they actually come at me and they want to listen. And in your cases, maybe many of you are young. I assume all of you are relatively young. And so you might be selling to people a lot older than you, and you might be feeling some imposter syndrome. But if we can understand their fears, we can speak to them, and they'll actually listen to us. They won't care about if we're young or old, experts or not, because we can speak the language that they care about. So how do I do it? Let's look at me specifically for a moment, because there's no point me just telling you a bunch of theory. I'm going to tell you exactly how I personally do it. Now, you will likely do something slightly different, but let me show. My step one to all those hopes and dreams and fears is I do podcasting. Yes, I'm a novel person with a podcast. And ironically, I call it founder fuck ups. Do founders want to make mistakes? Probably not, right? Even though it's the best way to learn, right? But people don't want to make mistakes. They're afraid of making mistakes, afraid of picking the wrong partner, afraid of taking the wrong investor, afraid of not being able to sell, afraid of running out of runway, afraid of their pivot not working. So what do? I create a long form piece of content with a guest. My guest matches my ideal customer profile. They're a founder of a company, exactly what I'm looking for. I bring them on. We do, honestly, it's a 25 to 35-minute episode. I like to keep them short and sweet. I bring them on and we have a great conversation. I ask them to talk about one mistake they made as a founder, the impact that caused them, and the lesson they learned. Now, this will attract people who have that fear of making the same mistake. It will attract people who have a similar problem in their business. And these founders have overcome these mistakes. So it gives them hope that they can overcome it themselves. And some of these founders have achieved great success. So they have that dream of following in their footsteps. You see how I'm connecting this straight back to the problem, fears, hopes, and dreams. And additionally, they're my ideal customer profile. So literally some of the people who've come on my podcast are now my clients, which is wonderful. So it's not just content creation. For me, it became networking at scale. I take this one lovely video and I churn out a ton of content, right? You've all used Opus Clips and various things like that. I believe there is even somebody within your network that came from the youth summit that has his own similar version of Opus Clips. I forget his name and the name of the company. I'm sure you guys know better than I. Right. I can take a 1 hour recording or a 35-minute recording. I can create 10 assets. I can create shorts, hooks, segments. I can create key insights that I can put into LinkedIn as a text post. I can create still images, vertical videos. I post like 6 videos on YouTube a day, because the algorithm loves it. And so I don't have to create tons of content from scratch. I'm using technology to basically streamline my entire content strategy. And so from one piece, I've created many. And you all know about repurposing content. If you don't know and you're thinking about doing a podcast or something similar, I use Riverside. Riverside is a wonderful AI tool. There's a freemium version, which anyone can use. And then the paid version is very affordable, where it does all of the editing and repurposing and creating blog posts, everything in one go. So it's very good. Check it out. So now I've interviewed my ideal customer profile. A few of them become a client, not all of them. I've got great content. I now need to distribute this content. I'm going to distribute it on my channel. We've been talking about LinkedIn. So I'm going to distribute every piece of content across LinkedIn over periods of days. Right. It's not all in one go. I'm going to tag my guest. I'm going to tag my guest. I don't care who you're selling to or what persona you're selling to, but your guest or the person you're doing content with is 100% going to be connected to like-minded, similar profile, similar individuals. It's just always the case because we flock together, don't we? Right? We all flock together. We like to spend time. We go to industry events. We connect. So I do an interview. I just had Simone, the founder of Charlie, on my podcast. So I post the video. We had some conversations about he moved his business out to San Francisco. It was a really great conversation. I've had about 30 to 40, I can't remember exactly, 40 people like this post. Half of them were founders that I've never spoken to or met. Excellent. These are my ICP. these are the people I want to connect with. They now have liked and engaged with a piece of content. They've seen my face in a video next to someone they know, like, and trust. And that's what sales comes down to, people know, liking, and trusting you. So I'm now borrowing Simone's authority and Simone's audience so that I can access it. And then step 4 comes conversion time. So what do I do with that? Well, people who have engaged my posts, they are what I would call potential leads. And I haven't even had to do any cold outreach. I can now send them a connection request on LinkedIn because they've engaged with me, and I can personalize it. Hey, I saw you like the conversation with Simone. Let's connect, let's talk. And I have a very, very high acceptance rate. We're talking 75, 80%. Now, if you're doing mass outbound to strangers cold, you're lucky if you get, 10% acceptance rate on LinkedIn. 20% is considered great. I'm talking 75 to 85% because they have engaged with your content, my content, right? I can create a targeted sequence. I'm lazy. I like to automate things that can be automated. And so what I do is when somebody likes my post, I use a product called Fuzzy AI. Fuzzy AI is a Singapore startup. Check them out. Fuzzy enables me to extract the profile and put them into a sequence where we can send them 3 or 4 messages over a 10-day period to get them to follow. So I can enroll them into targeted campaigns. And I'm really cheeky. I just say, hey, I saw you liked my latest episode. And then I say, I hope you subscribed. Little laugh, right? Just a bit of cheek because I'm cheeky. So I like to be a bit cheeky. And then I ask them a question. How's your journey going? Why do I ask them a question? Why didn't I go, hey, can I meet you? Can I sell you something? This is what I'm doing. Rather than doing that, I'm just trying to start a conversation. And that is what sales is. That's what outbound sales is all about. It's not about booking the meeting. It's not about closing the deal. It's about starting conversations. And many salespeople forget that. Many founders forget that because you're so focused on conversion. But once you start conversations with these prospects, for example, how's your journey going? That's very much connected to me just talking to Simone about his journey. So how's your journey going? And once they answer, I've got, because guess what people like to talk about? Can anyone just throw me a random guess? What do people love to talk about?
Themselves.
Themselves.
Yes, exactly, themselves, right? The founders have, which is very large.
Ego.
Ego.
Yes, exactly. I actually have just been reading this book, The Secrets of Sand Hill Road, which is a great book. It's all about venture capital, and it's literally how the Horowitz team, they'd like to invest in founders who are like egomaniacs because they have the ego to never give up and just believe that they are going to do it. No one else can do it, just them. And so I'm reaching out to founders. We all know that every person in the world just loves to talk about themselves, and founders just so happen to have large egos. So once they start talking about themselves, I ask more questions, and they're going to reply because they like it, they're enjoying it, and then I connect that back to what I do a little bit later. 2 or 3 questions in, a little bit of a conversation started. So we're using content to help us have warm conversations rather than just doing cold outreach. And suddenly we go from that uncomfortable truth at the beginning of blasting, spray and pray, where we burn bridges, where we annoy people, where we're disappointed by volume, where we start to buy tools like instantly that let us send 1,000 emails a day, which I truly believe is a cancer on outbound sales. And it's incredibly disappointing that these tools have become so successful. But now we're having warm conversations. And you know what? We start to stand out from all of the lazy salespeople, the lazy founders who just create an automated workflow on instantly and hope for the best. And now you stand out. Now, when you first start, I highly recommend you do this manually. I mentioned that I use a tool called Fuzzy. Fuzzy's fantastic, but it costs a bit of money. I recommend you do it manually. And the reason why I want you to do it manually is because you are going to learn how to do it. You're going to learn how to shift your text. You're going to shift your sentences. You're going to ask slightly different questions. If you give slop or bad templates or bad systems to AI or to automation, you're just kind of expanding crap. So learn, have real conversations, be a human being at the beginning, figure it out. And then you'll have your flywheel. And this is what I do week in, week out. I do a podcast, I repurpose, I distribute, I convert. Do a podcast, repurpose, distribute, convert. If you go onto my profile, you will see it. I've got a unique name, Ben Bag, BAGG. You can find me on LinkedIn and all you'll see is this. And it works really well. You'll see my latest episode with Simone. Shameless plug, go and subscribe on YouTube to learn from his mistakes and other founders' mistakes. But this becomes a flywheel and this system compounds, right? The more we do it, the easier it gets. The more the algorithm likes us, the more reach we start to get, the more people who start to follow us, the more people who start to connect with us. You then find yourself, you get opportunities. Look at this opportunity. I get to speak to you wonderful people. I'm not quite sure why they chose me, but I'm sure my content and the fact that I can talk on these subjects helps. Now, I'm not saying you guys are my ideal customer profile, but one day you will be because you're all founders, right? So this is fantastic opportunity for me. And if you are doing stuff like this, you will get other opportunities that could lead to speaking at an event or writing a guest article on a tech website or something like that. Things happen. You'll be surprised. And look, it all looks simple. All looks simple. Most things are simple, to be honest, but really execution is hard. I was literally speaking to a founder today who's like, I've got all these ideas, but he struggles to execute. Execution's hard. So I will be giving you a challenge a little bit later on, don't you worry. Now, another way to use LinkedIn is a little bit cheating. So I've talked about the content. I want you to do social selling. I really do. And I want you to have some cheats, some tools. You can use Sales Navigator to find leads that match your ideal profile. So we can start to send them connection requests. When they accept, these individuals start to see your content. We do not necessarily have to message them straight away, but as they connect with you, it makes them a follower of you. And this is great if we're posting content and speaking to their problems, their fears, their hopes, their dreams. And then we can use tools. There are many. Fuzzy AI. I'm going to speak of Fuzzy AI because I use it. I also coach the founder and they're a Singapore-based company. And that's what I like about them. But there are others. So you've got Prosp, you've got HeyReach. There are many different tools for this. But I think highly of Serena, the founder. She's a great founder. I'm based in Singapore. I'm sure she'd love to meet you guys. So how I cheat on Sales Navigator? I don't just search my ideal customer profile. My ideal customer profile is easy. Founder, age. So typically I don't mean physical age, I mean business age. Like how long has the company been alive? I look at 0 to 5 years, right? So that's quite easy for me to find. I want them in, say, Singapore or Malaysia or South Korea or Bangladesh or India. There's just some of the countries I remember who are on the call today. But I'm also filtering for have they posted on LinkedIn in the last 30 days. And the reason why I'm doing that is because these people actually are actively using LinkedIn. That means they're liking articles, they're reading posts, they're posting themselves. This makes them easier for me to actually speak to. There's a lot of, what would you call them? Ghosts. I don't know. People who just don't, they've got an account, they never use it, right? They use it as a resume. They only log in when they're looking for a job. So I typically like to do this quick filter. It's a simple cheat code. Now, Sales Navigator is quite expensive. It's about $100 US a month, but I assure you it's an incredible tool. If you're using individual LinkedIn, like you do not have a premium version of LinkedIn, it is increasingly difficult to do searching to find your prospects, but there are other ways to do that. What I recommend, and I don't have a slide on it, but what I recommend in that case, if you can't get Sales Navigator, you start by using Gemini or ChatGPT to build you a list of companies. And then you search those companies on LinkedIn and then you look at people who work for them and then you can find people a little okay. It's not as easy, but it's a little bit more manual and step by step, but that can help. So we're going to send connection requests. Now, it's great if we can personalize this. I don't want us to be generic when you're sending your opening messages to these people in your connection note. Try not to be generic. Now, we can use AI. So when I use Fuzzy AI, it will actually look at their recent posts or what's going on in their life, and it will actually customize a response. And people are more likely to reply that. Why would they might reply to something about them? Because people like talking about themselves, right? Kind of generic, like, hey, I see you're a CEO of a company. I see you work here. Or these things don't work. So try to avoid that in your connection request notes. Now, when you do use technology and you do want to do a little bit of automation, because it takes a while to build up our domain authority in content and so on, I have a very simple structured sequence for you to follow. Now, obviously, every one of you are doing something different, so it's quite generic on the screen, but it's a 4-step. We're going to do a connection request. You're either going to do blank or something about the individual, something personalized, or about the piece of content they've liked. Remember from earlier, like they did with my podcast. Now, if you are a female on LinkedIn, by having a blank connection request, you have a 20% chance of acceptance rate. If you're a male, you have a 5% chance of acceptance rate. I don't know why that's the case. I'll let you guys wonder, but unfortunately, it's a fact. So as a guy, definitely put a note, definitely personalize it, make it about the prospect. I'll say no more on the subject. Now, once they've accepted your connection request, we want an opener, right? Something personal and a question. Again, do not talk all about yourself. Do not go, I do this. These are the problems I solve. Here's the feature I've got. Please come and meet me. Don't do that. It's like, it's the biggest turnoff, you know? If you're in a coffee shop and you see a boy or a girl and you want to go and talk to them, you're not going to like just jump over and go for the kiss straight away. You're not going to try and take them home to meet the parents immediately before you've even had a chance to speak to them. You are strangers, right? You can't go straight for the kill. So icebreaker, just like I said earlier, hey, I saw you liked my video with Simone. How's your journey going? And now if they haven't liked a piece of content, hey, I can see that you're building this product in this region. I can actually see an opportunity here. I bet that's a real big challenge. How's your journey going? So I'm personalizing it about them. We're asking a question because outbound is not about booking a meeting. That's the end goal. It's actually about having conversations with people. It's about talking to people and getting them to talk back to you. So always a question. Now, if they don't reply, we go to the next step, which is a value add. And this is going to be a few days later. You can see day 1, day 2, day 4, day 7. Day 4, we're going to do some value add. Now, what I mean by that is we're going to share something relevant, something for free, some kind of nurture gift that we can give them, something insightful for them. Because remember, we create content. We create content that speaks to them. So let's share them. Now, on LinkedIn, if you put a link to a post that you have done into your message, it puts a preview, just like on WhatsApp. You know, if you send a link, it has a little preview image of the video of the Instagram post or what have you. The same on LinkedIn. So you can be like, hey, Kim, I was just thinking about you. I thought this article will be really relevant. I wrote this the other day. This is why. And you put a link and it shows the preview and they're more likely to click. And in fact, if you do this value add nurture step before you ask them for something, your reply rate on LinkedIn doubles. You get double the response rate of people who don't do that. So always have this step. You're probably in a rush. You've got pipeline, you've got targets, you've got goals, but just take a pause, do the value add. Now, day 7, they still haven't replied. Now we're going to ask them. We're like, Kim, before I leave you alone, I really think I can solve problem A. Could I get 15 minutes? Could I get 20, 25 minutes? Something. If they see that message, they're going to look back at your other messages and they're going to see the value add, because maybe they didn't see the value add before. So they're going to scroll back. If they saw the last message, they scroll back, they see the piece of content, go, oh, Kim's actually pretty good. I'm going to go and speak to her. So you can follow a very simple sequence. You can do this manually, or you can use a tool like Fuzzy AI, HeyReach, Prosp. Be careful because some of these tools are a little bit naughty. Some people have been banned using them. So just make sure you use ones that have been thoroughly reviewed so you don't lose your profile. Now, how do we measure success of everything here today? Right? When we're creating content, how often are people viewing our profiles? Typically, people who are viewing our profiles are either connected to us or not connected to us. And they were like, oh, this person did a piece of content. Let's have a look. Obviously, we're also looking at our acceptance rate. You can send, if you have Sales Navigator, 100 connections requests a week. If you do not have Sales Navigator, you can send 5 per day. You can see why I recommend everyone get Sales Navigator. So what's the percentage of people? If your percentage is low, if it's below 20%, you need to change your note. You need to optimize what you send. How many people are responding? and how many eventually then convert to meetings. These are some of the stats you should be thinking about, some of the metrics you should follow. I'm sure you can create a simple spreadsheet or use a little bit of AI to help you. Oh, guys, actions for you, right? Something you can do to start this week. Step one, we're going to audit our profiles, right? We want a professional photo. I have seen so many silly photos on LinkedIn, it drives me mad. It's like not quite beach photos, but very much Instagram photos rather than professional. Let's make sure we've got a professional photo. Let's change our page to be more of a landing page, right? So, what do we do for people? What's the value that we bring? Not our work experience, not our resume, right? Because it's not a CV. I also want you to plan about your content, right? Plan first. We're not going to create something. Let's just think, what are unique insights we can share? What are the things that you're building a product for a reason? There was probably a pain or a problem or a fear or something that drove you to do that. And it could even just be you talking about your journey as a founder. People love to follow these kinds of journeys. So think about that content, draft one, post it. The only
No engagement?
There's nothing. The worst that can happen to us is we're a little embarrassed. But luckily, in this internet age, they're going to forget about your post in about 2 seconds and you can start again. So don't be afraid if you don't get a lot of people follow you straight away. Don't be afraid if people don't post, don't react to your post. Also, go and identify 10 people that you think should be your customers, start following them and even engaging with them. Go comment on their content. Remember, we're going to look for the people who posted in the last 30 days, not people who aren't posting, not for now, right? We want to go and engage them, start talking to people, speak their language, right? This is a lovely little challenge for you guys. And the 90-day challenge is very, very important. We have to build our authority. It does not happen overnight. Okay. But also, so there's an element of building habits, and we need the right habits to do this. We need to be consistent. I do a post nearly every single day without fail. Perhaps not on the weekend, right? But more or less every day. So the next couple of weeks, I want you to get your profile going. I realize actually my challenge is incorrect. So just pretend like there's not a lot of text on the screen and just pretend it says 90-day challenge for a minute. Another founder fuck up for me. I want you to write and post one piece of content on LinkedIn every single day for the next 90 days. What that does for you is it puts you on the content creation circuit. That circuit is produce, publish, pay attention. So you're going to produce a piece of content. Maybe it's your story, or maybe it's about some of the fears or dreams or hopes or problems. I'm definitely down the wrong order. Problems, fears, hopes, dreams, right? You're going to write content and you're going to post it. And you're going to post it every single day. So when you're publishing it and you start paying attention to who's interacting, who's commenting, is anyone reposting, are we getting impressions? And you're going to make improvements. And very quickly you'll figure out what works best for you. And things work better for, differently for everybody. I found for me, when I do video, I get great impressions, great responses. If I do a single image, not so well. If I do just text, it's crap. Unless my text is like a Twitter or an X long message. It's like 140 characters and it's like super short. That's the only time when just text works for me on LinkedIn. Now, different people are different. I know somebody who just does pure text and they get hundreds of likes. So this is the pay attention part. And I assure you, in 90 days' time, you would have learned how to build your authority. And we can start to really launch our campaigns, and people are going to connect with you more. People are going to respond to your messages. You can message your ICP who's been connecting with your audience, and you are going to be a much stronger social seller in 3 months' time, in 90 days. So 90 days from now, I don't know when that is, call it mid-April, mid-May, you guys are going to be having great personal brands and the beginnings of a personal brand that people are going to want to buy into, because people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. So if you put your brand out there, your story and the problems you're solving, you put it out there, people will start to know, like, and trust you, and they'll give you their money if you can solve their problems. Thank you very much, guys. I think we got like 10 minutes or so for a bit of Q&A. I'm happy to answer any questions. Go.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you have any tips for creating like a landing page for LinkedIn, since I'm still not quite sure what that is?
Yeah. Okay. Do you know what I mean when I say landing page?
Not really.
Okay. So landing page is like the first page someone's going to land on when they come to, say, your website, right? And when they come to your website, you've got to very quickly, you're a short amount of time because they've got a short amount of attention for them to understand the problem that you solve, how you solve it, and how they can connect with you. And so what I'm talking about your profile is the same context of that one of those landing pages, right? So what do you do for your persona? How do you do it? And how can they talk to you? And that needs to be the main element of your profile. Does that make sense? I think it was Che, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it makes much more sense now.
Any other questions?
Hi, Ben. Would you recommend, like, after making a post, do you recommend, like, having, like, 20 friends or something like it so that it gets recommended to their second degree connections? Or do you, like, rather do it organically? Because I see a lot of people on Instagram, especially in the US, and their posts have, like, random posts, like, not even educational, just random posts about some emoji having, like, hundreds of likes and maybe, like, hundreds of comments as well. Yeah.
I wouldn't be posting random slop because it doesn't connect with the audience I'm trying to sell to. Because I want to post content that, if you recall, I'm talking about problems, fears, hopes, and dreams. So I want to create content around that. Do I want my friends to like that? Sure, absolutely. But I don't want I'm not going to really count that unless those friends are connected with my audience because it's not really getting me the reach that I'm looking for. But I'm not going to post an emo. I think that's what you were saying. Or did you say
No,
emoji?
emoji.
Oh, you said emoji. I thought you said emo. I mean, you can put emojis in your content if you want. Some people like it. Like I sometimes put a little rocket ship. If your audience will connect to that language, then I recommend. Are you selling to if you're selling to big enterprise corporations? Maybe not. You know?
Talking about random stuff, like, my least favorite emoji is, I think that person said, like, a coffee emoji or something completely random, unrelated.
Oh yeah,
But it,
and I wouldn't be posting my favorite coffee emoji on LinkedIn.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
About the ChatGPT tip with with ChatGPT learning from Reddit. I think I've seen some kind of bias on ChatGPT based on Reddit because Reddit is basically an English-based site. So if we are going for a more nation-specific service, something like that, I think it could be a little inaccurate in terms of information.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you've got some similar platforms where you're from to Reddit, where people are publishing quite publicly, right? Because Reddit's like an open forum, whereas Instagram and Facebook are a little bit closed behind profiles. So if you've got something similar out there, but I've sold to, I don't know, like I've sold to people in maybe like 30 different countries. I'm not exactly sure anymore. And I find that people everywhere are kind of the same. We all kind of have the same fears, hopes, and dreams, to be honest. And so I think you'll find that what you find on Reddit will pretty much match what you find where you are. There'll be nuances, right? There are different cultural points, but most of us have very similar problems, fears, hopes, and dreams for a similar persona. So I still stand by using Reddit, but if you have a local version of it, crack on.
I have a question. A lot of people are debating right now whether to build on public or private. Like some people are saying that it's better to be gone on social media and just reappear when your startup is already happening, while the others are saying it's better to film every single one of the process. So my question is, what's your opinion for those people who would like to build up quietly and just reappear after 6 months of starting up their business?
My opinion,
Yeah,
it's
your opinion.
stop being so scared and get public. I don't know if it's fear, but speak about what you're doing because we need to attract people to our story to become our customer or to become our alpha tester or our wait list or various different stages of our journey. You've got to speak of it. Honestly, I really believe that. Now, if you're doing some kind of deep tech and you've got a big war chest of cash that some investors giving you to do something crazy and then suddenly appear out of nowhere, it's a different story. But if you're like me and you kind of have built relatively bootstrap, maybe you've raised a little bit of capital, but you haven't got a bottomless pit, you've got to, I feel like you really have to speak. And we're in the attention economy, right? And we got to get people's attention. Everyone is screaming and shouting and saying, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. And so you've got to get in there. You've got to get people hearing about you because you can create the greatest product in the world, but if nobody knows about it, nobody sees it, it means nothing. So that's my opinion. I strongly recommend you get public. And actually, there's a lot of psychology around it too, because if you say you're going to do something publicly, right? you're more likely to do it. I've just spent this is kind of personal, but I've just spent the last year losing a bunch of weight. I've lost about 15 kilos. I've done a transformation. I'm very proud, obviously. But part of that journey, thank you. Part of that journey was me and my friends created a WhatsApp group where we said, hey, we're going to run every day, or like not every day, but we're going to run these days. And so if I didn't go for that run and didn't post my Strava screenshot, I had like that social pressure. And so guess what? I went and did it. Even if I did a crappy 2 kilometer run and practically walked, I still did it because of that social pressure. And actually that was really, really powerful. So if you go to the world and say, I'm doing something, and then you keep saying that and people will like it and share or talk to you about it, this will help you push through and not give up so easily, because it's so easy to give up when nobody knows, because nobody knows you gave up. But that's just my opinion.
To build on top of that, what can you recommend to someone who's shy to start off? Like they're very introverted and they can't even talk. So what can you recommend for them to start to build up their own portfolio in LinkedIn?
Okay, I'm assuming it's not you because you're talking in this public room right now, right?
Yes.
Just a second, because if it was you, I was gonna say, look, you're doing it great. Look, you're speaking up. But I get it. You know, I've never been shy. I mean, of course I've been shy, but I'm quite an extroverted, outgoing person. But look, even when I first started, the only thing I can connect this to personally is when I first started selling and I had to do cold calling. And cold calling is probably the most uncomfortable thing I've ever done in my life, or one of the most uncomfortable things. And I remember my first cold call, I called somebody up and like, I was like, oh, hi, I need to, can I speak, you know, and I was stuttering and and I struggled. And I was like 22. And the guy just said, hey, we're a really big company. Call me back when you have experience. And he just hung up on me. Now, in my personal experience, I took that as a challenge. So I ended up doing like 10,000 cold calls. I just was like, boom, 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 boom. Learn. I got great. I built confidence. And then I called that guy back up and he ended up becoming a client. So the only thing I can say is you are going to feel shy and feel embarrassed to do these things. They're difficult. It's hard, right? But nothing worth doing is easy. And if you could just take one step, maybe that step is to stand up in front of your classmates here in this group of your young peers who are all going through the same thing and share just one small thing that you're building. That could be the first step. Or it could be you do a fake pitch day with your friends where you go, hey, let me practice my investor pitch. There are lots of little things you can do and create environments to make it feel safe and then slowly just kind of scale that up. When I was 23 or 24, it was my first time starting a business. It was an esports company. It was called UK Gaming Tours. Failed. It was a catastrophe. But I remember I had to do a pitch to 500 people at a gala event. And so I had to stand up in 500 people wearing a tuxedo. And I'd never done a speech before. And I was so scared. My heart was absolutely racing. Felt like I was going to die. But, you know, I put myself there. I seeked discomfort. And that's what I recommend. You know, seek the discomfort, create little spaces and build up. Don't jump to the 500 person audience, but build up. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much for that. Very well explained. Loved it.
Welcome. Anybody else? Kim Cheng, if I'm sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly, but I see you
Yes,
raised
it's
it.
correct.
Oh,
Yes.
wonderful.
So, so my question is, when you're someone new to LinkedIn, is it okay to post content that happened like months ago?
I don't understand what you mean by that.
What I mean is, like, you just logged into LinkedIn, you just made a new account, and like you have past experiences joining events or any social events and stuff. Like, is it okay if we post like experiences we have like a little to a while ago?
Yeah, why not? Why not? I did a post a couple of weeks ago. Go check out my profile if you guys like. Again, unique name. You can find me quite easily. I did a post, I think, about a half marathon I ran in October. And I did a not, and like that happened in October. And I think I did it like, I wrote that post like 2 weeks ago. You know, so absolutely no problem. And look, I talk about my health journey on LinkedIn. You know, you can talk about so much on LinkedIn. The reason why I talk about it is because it's about discipline, right? And to be a discipline, to be a founder, it does require discipline. And so that's why I talk a little bit about it. But you can post about anything and it will speak to your audience, just not emojis of coffee.
Yes, for sure.
Have a human story. People love human stories. We're at the end of the day, we're Neanderthals who have figured out technology, right? We love stories. We love sitting around a campfire and learning from each other and talking. That's the human element. We're storytellers. And so tell your story. People will gravitate towards it. And those that don't worry about it. There's so many people. I don't know how many people are on LinkedIn, maybe 1 billion, maybe 2 billion. You'll be fine.
Ben, maybe just two very quick questions from me. The first one, since Sales Navigator is really expensive for students, is there an alternative you would recommend with the free trial, things like Apollo, for them to find ICPs or leads they can reach out to? Secondly, you showed the 4-step process of reaching out for cold outreach. For if they're still at the kind of like the market and the problem validation stage where they're trying to reach out to potential users to get insights and surveys and interviews and things like that, how should they play it to their advantage? Because they're not selling, they're seeking insights and all. How should they tweak their outreach to do that?
First question. Yeah, you can use Apollo. I think it's like $20 and you can do a filter. And I think on Apollo, you can get the LinkedIn URL and then you get it on a spreadsheet or in Apollo, and then you click through to their profiles. So that is one way you can do better filtering on LinkedIn. Yes. You can do a 2-month free trial with Sales Navigator. And I think you get like a little trial with Apollo as well, but then it's about $20 a month. So it's quite affordable. As for seeking help, it's even easier to send messages when you're doing that, actually. So we've launched in my groups or in my previous group, we had 2 tech products, one which is like project management, one which was sales automation. Sales automation we scrapped, but project management. So we did hundreds and hundreds of customer interviews. And when we reached out to people, we were just direct, hey, look, we think this is a problem. Does this, and I'm not trying to sell. I just want to see if you can confirm that, because we're thinking about building a product, something along those lines. And we found that when we do that, people are a little bit more responsive to even just cold without all the content, because we're not really asking for anything properly, So you can actually do a little bit more cold outreach when you're asking for customer interviews, because people are kind of okay. But know that I wouldn't say spray and pray, but know that it is a bit of a numbers game. People are quite busy. So think about it again, as I always say, in a conversation. You're trying to ask them a question to get them to talk to you. So don't ask them something hard or something personal, like maybe what's your ARR? What's your churn rate? Like, you don't ask these questions out of the blue. It's like asking me my weight. You don't do that, right? It's just rude. Yeah. But you could ask me something, a little bit more direct. I don't know what products you might be building, but we did a autonomous project management, right? Which was really cool. And so we would ask things like, when you're doing project management, are you sick of going into the emails and Slack channels and grabbing tasks? Does that feel like a problem for you? Like, is that a big time suck? And that's like an easy yes or no question, like response. Yeah, it does take quite a lot of time. No, it doesn't. Right. And then I can ask another question and then later ask them, could I have an interview? And so if you're going at it with the approach of conversation, it's people are very responsive to you.
Yeah, I think that's it then.
Oh,
Thank you so much, Ben.
welcome.
Hey.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
If
you,
you
everyone.
want to get in touch, want some help, drop me a message on LinkedIn, follow me, subscribe to the podcast, Founder Fuck Ups on YouTube and Spotify.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye.